Oh boy, we finally made it to the Collection 2020 lineup of bigger archetypes. Yeah, they're barely over 10 cards long, both of them. This one is precisely 10 cards, and yep, we're talking about Appliancers first. The Rainzer archetype, which was used by Robopi, which was a little robo-companion of Playmaker, well, the epitome of a side character in the first two seasons, as he was Playmaker's basically house-cleaning robot, and then uh, it gained a bit more prominence in season 3 when it became Ai's companion and gained his human form. I wasn't terribly fond of it, but he did have it had one of the better managed death scenes, which could actually rival Yuki's death scene in Sword Art Online. But I still think Yuki's death scene is a hell of a lot more impactful. So yeah, at least you had a very nice try, and I applaud you for it, Robopi. Okay, so you might have noticed that I've been throwing around the word it instead of he or she. Well, that's because Robopi happens to be one of the more gender-ambiguous characters in the anime universe. Well, when we first meet it seems fairly simple to deduce that that Robopi is a girl due to the way it behaves and the fact that it has kind of a girly voice. But when we get to season 3, when Robopi's human form is revealed, he looks a lot more like a boy, and he really looks similar to Sora when we really want to make comparisons here. Plus, the Wikia kind of states that he's a boy officially, so I'm gonna keep referring to him as a boy. So yeah, we kind of have like a Nights into Dreams syndrome here, where at Nights the main character is supposed to be genderless, and its gender is largely subjective, but I'm digging way too deep into this. This is an archetype analysis after all, so let's take a look at this archetype. And yes, Appliancers are actually the Link version and spiritual successors to Morphtronics, because their effects are based on whether they are co-linked or not. And Morphtronics had something similar with battle positions, but I think Appliancer do it a little bit better, because you can manipulate this kind of thing with being co-linked or not a bit better than Morphtronics, because Morphtronics had a problem of they did have some support which allowed them to shift their battle positions quite easily. But the other problem which arose in Morphtronics is that one effect was clearly better than the other, which pretty much opened up which not really opened up, but closed down the possibility of experimentation with different kinds of effects. While Appliancers have pretty decent effects on both ends, so yeah, I think they are better in that regard. But anyway, let's start off with our first monster, that being Appliancer Socket Roll, a level 1 machine with 100 attack and defense. And if you control an Appliancer monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if an Appliancer Socket Roll is special summoned to your field while you control this card, you can special summon another Appliancer Socket Roll from your deck, and you can only use each effect of Appliancer Socket Roll once per turn. Needless to say, you run 3 of these because it's a machine dupe target first of all, which is very important. It's an Allure of Darkness target if you really want to go there. And on top of it all, its effect is actually very nice and very integrated as a Link spam archetype, and it basically requires you to run 3 of them in order to make best use of it. And not to mention one of their 2 other main deck monsters, yeah, the archetype only has 3 main deck monsters, has an effect which allows to copy monster names, meaning you can get even more splashability and utility with this card. So yeah, Socket Roll is an absolute 3-off staple in any build. Next up we have Appliancer Breaker Bunkle, which is another level 1, but this time it's a water machine. Good lord, what were they thinking? The other main deck monster is also a dark machine, so yeah, this kind of makes Allure of Darkness a bit of a tricky choice, but yeah, you can still pull it off if you want to. But anyway, during damage calculation, if your Appliancer monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can discard. For that battle, your monster cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage. If an Appliancer monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard instead. So yeah, this is basically an archetypal hand trap which stops battle. Destruction, and not to mention, if you happen to have it on the field or in the you're rarely going to see this thing on the field unless you machine dupe it. If you're really desperate for some more machines, which should not be a problem with this deck, as we'll soon see. But anyway, yeah, you can basically banish it in order to prevent effect destruction as well. So it's simply, you could consider it a balanced out Kite-Roid. Now, Kite-Roid, for all of you who don't know, is actually an anime exclusive Roid support card, which you can discard to prevent battle damage, and you can also banish it from the graveyard in order to prevent battle damage. And these effects can be used both in the same turn, so you can basically tank 2 hits with them. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of that by its design, and yeah, it's usually not ran all that often because its effects are not really intended for swarming, as we'll see later on. But then again, it could not hurt because this archetype is not about heavy link spamming, as we'll see later on. They only have 4 link monsters, 3 of which are link 1 monsters, and one of them is a link 2. So yeah, no hard monster shenanigans swarming here. So you can be a bit more free in running 2 or 3 of these if you want to, but 2 should work perfectly fine in my opinion, since again, it's also a water monster and it can affect your Allure of Darknesses, so yeah. And our final main deck monster is Appliancer Copy Buckle. It has the same stats as Breaker Buckle, but it's a dark machine this time around as well. And you can target one Appliancer monster you control, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, this card's name becomes the targeted monster's name until the end phase. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard and target one Appliancer monster you control, special summon one monster with the same name from your hand or graveyard, and you can only use each effect of Appliancer Copy Buckle once per turn. It's fine, but I am not really a big fan how you have to wait a turn in order to recycle an Appliancer monster. If you could do it on the same turn, then I would actually call it a very good card. But as it is right now, it's also pretty good. It also synergizes with the Socket Roll as well, which you tend to run 3 copies as well. And yeah, if you summon an Appliancer by the way of normal summoning, yeah, or any other summon, you can basically chain off of him and summon this. It'll trigger Socket Roll's effect. So yeah, it's a fantastic card, and 2 or 3 of these are usually how you want to go about things, because again, it's also a machine dupe target. And yeah, that does it for the main deck in terms of the monster lineup. Now let's go on to the link monster, first of which we have Appliancer Vaculephant. This is a link 1 with 1000 attack, and he points top right, and yeah, we'll see later why. It's a dark machine as well, and requires an Appliancer monster as material, and cannot be used as link material the turn it is link summoned. And this effect is actually shared among all of the link 1 Appliancer monsters, so I'll stop elaborating from now on. This card that is not co-link can attack directly. You can only use one of the following effects of an Appliancer Vaculephant once per turn, and only once that turn. And you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it. And if this card is co-linked, you can target 1 monster in your opponent's main monster zone and destroy it. So yeah, this is basically a very simple monster removal, and if it is not co-linked, it can attack directly, which with 1000 attack, along with limiter removal, can be some pretty hefty damage output, because again 1000 attack is not a very small value for a direct attacker, and yeah, combined with limiter removal, that's 2000 attack of worth of direct damage. So yeah, and not to mention that this effect is okay, and the effects are actually very similar whether this thing is co-linked or not. If it is not co-linked, it requires you to send a card from your hand to the graveyard in order to destroy any card on the field, which is pretty good. But if it is co-linked, it does not require a discard, but the trade-away is that you can only destroy monsters with this way, and only monsters in main monster zone. So yeah, you can kind of see now the similarities between this archetype and the aforementioned Morphtronics, which they probably inspired this archetype. But yeah, both of these effects kick ass in their own way, and you'll most likely have some nice discard fodder in order to fuel the first part of the effect. But yeah, it's a pretty fun card, and you could always run one, 2 or 3 of these, because yeah, the extra deck toolbox is not that tight with this archetype, to be honest. So yeah. Next up we have Appliancer Dryer Drake. This is a fire machine monster with 0 attack. This time has the same link arrow as Vacuolephant, also has the same summoning condition, and this linked card gains 1000 attack. And once per turn during your battle phase, if this card is co-linked, you can switch the locations of 2 Appliancer monsters in your main monster zones, including this card. And if you do, the other monster can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. Once per turn, when this card is not co-linked and it's targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack. Okay, so now we have another card which has the same gimmick as Vacuolephant, and it actually combos well with Vacuolephant, since you can basically move him out of the way to not make him co-linked, and give him the ability to attack twice, and combined with limiter removal, yeah, you get the point. You can get some pretty sick damage outputs out here. Not to mention, you can also use this thing in order to quickly negate an attack, since you can basically disconnect this from a link monster you might have on the field in order to stop an attack. Although the thing loses 1000 attack if you do so. But yeah, it's a fun little tech choice. Well, it can be a tech choice, but you can also go in a full-fledged Appliancer build with all of their extra deck monsters, because again, I repeat, the extra deck space is not tight at all with this archetype, so you can basically be a little you can basically run a lot more of these if you want to. So yeah, I suggest running at least 2 of these, because it actually combos very well with Vacuolephant, especially with the double attacking, because yeah, combined with limiter removal, it's really a fantastic attacking option. And next up we have Appliancer Laundry Dragon, which is a water machine with 1500 attack points up. Also requires an Appliancer monster, and neither player takes battle damage from attacks involving this card. Once per turn after damage calculation, if this co-link card battled an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster. And once per turn after damage calculation, if this card that is not co-linked battled an opponent's monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. So yeah, we have another excellent example of a combination of 2 great effects. If it is co-linked, you get to banish an opponent's monster, which is a nice effect in its own. But if you have some floodgates such as Imperial Iron Wall on the field, or the monster or the opponent has some other types of floodgates which prevent you from banishing the monster in order to get rid of it thoroughly, you can also use the non-co-linked effect in order to simply destroy it. but you also have the risk of triggering its floating effects, which, okay, it can kind of screw you over later on, but it's actually a nice choice to have. And also, if you choose to destroy it instead of banish it, you also get to burn your opponent for the original monster's attack. So if you happen to attack over something very strong, you can get some hefty burn damage as well. And also, this thing under limiter removal becomes a Link 1 with 3000 attack, which is nothing to scoff at. So yeah, this little guy has some great applicability, and it should always be ran at 3. And next up we have the final Link monster, which is the Link 2 Appliancer Celtopus. This one requires specifically 2 Appliancer monsters, points bottom, left, and down. And your opponent's monsters cannot target this Link card for attacks. Also, your opponent cannot target this Link card with card effects. And during damage calculation, if your Appliancer or Link monster co-link to discard battles an opponent's monster, your battling monster gains 1000 attack for each monster co-linked to this card, and during that damage calculation only, once per turn, if an appliance or link monster you control and that is not co-linked to this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to draw 1 card. So it should come to no surprise that this is the monster you go into, and the first monster that you go into, and then proceed to make plays from there, because this is an excellent combo starter. And not to mention, it supports the Vaculov and the limiter removal OTK. It also helps out with Dryer Drake's OTK. No, not Dryer Drake, Laundry Dragon's OTK. Yeah, I got those two mixed up. But yeah, this is a fantastic card and should never be run at any less than 3. Beautiful card. And now we move on to their final 3 cards, which are all spell cards. And yeah, even in the anime they did not have any trap cards. Anyway, first off, we have their field spell, which is the biggest tongue twister in the universe. I'm gonna read this out as slowly as possible because my tongue will hurt if I try to rush this. Appliancer Electrilyrical World. Okay, finally. I read that out loud as I should have. And yeah, it's a field spell with this effect. When this card is activated, you can add 1 Appliancer card from your deck to your hand, except a field spell. Once per turn, if you link summon an Appliancer Link monster, you can add an Appliancer monster from your graveyard to your hand, and once per turn when a monster declares an attack, you can move 1 Appliancer monster you control to another one of your main monster zones, and you can only activate 1 Appliancer Electrilyrical World once per turn. So in terms of how field spells go, it's a fantastic option. It's it's way better even than World Legacy's Nightmare, which is the Nightmare field spell for all those lovely Nightmare Link monsters. It basically has almost all of the effects that the World Legacy's Nightmare has, except it also has a whole bunch of bonus effects, which overall make it a superior field spell in my eyes. Because on activation you get a search of any Appliancer card, including the other 2 spell cards. The only card you cannot search is obviously the Electrilyrical World. Yeah, see? Try saying that really fast and you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, except any field spell, because yeah, future proofing, I guess. If Appliancers by some accident gain more field spells in the future, this effect will lock them out from being searched when you activate this card. But anyway, you also get some lovely recycling upon summoning Link monsters, Appliancer Link monsters, and not to mention the Nightmare effects, which I already pointed out, make it a very nice card and a definite 3-off staple in the deck. Although I wish it could be searched out a bit more easier since we have 1 terraforming and 1 metaverse, but it's certainly better than nothing, and I believe metaverse will be the only trap card that this deck will ever run, because I don't think that this deck actually needs any trap cards besides metaverse. So yeah. Anyway, next up we have Appliancer Reuse. And target one Appliancer monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. An archetypal monster reborn fetches their monsters from the graveyard. For some reason it places them on the bottom of the deck, which is actually very solid since you can actually reuse them with machine duplication. So yeah, run 3 at all times. And the final card is Appliancer Test. Target one Appliancer Link monster you control. Special summon as many Link 1 Appliancer Link monsters from your graveyard as possible to your zone that monster points to, but banish them during the end phase. You can only activate one Appliancer Test per turn. So yeah, you can activate this in order to get some fallen Link monsters to partake in battle once again in order to use their awesome effects. Try to finish the duel before they are banished during the end phase, or you can link them away into other Link monsters because yeah, you can basically perform the Tensei Rinku Shokan like they do with Salamangreats, because you can like revive a Vacuolophant and link him away into a new Vacuolophant in order to protect him from being banished during the end phase. You can also perform the same with any other Link one you tend to summon. So yeah, it's a nice card and you definitely run 3 at all times. Now in terms of the grading, let's do some grading here, and it's gonna be a bit tricky because in terms of consistency they only have 3 main deck monsters with 3 spell cards, which are good, but they are not quite good enough for a 3 out of 3 even with the generic with assloads of generic machine support, because we really need more main deck consistency, because the most consistency we have here is Allure of Darkness and Machine Duplication, and that's about it. But still, it's way better than nothing, so I'll give them a 2 out of 3. In terms of power, this deck can actually hit quite hard with the appropriate setup, but most of it is limited to, well, limiter removal. How ironic, but yeah, it's certainly there, so I'll give them a 2 out of 3 at least for trying. In terms of comeback ability, they actually do have quite a few ways they can come back from a major beatdown, since most of their Link monsters are supremely easy to summon. But still, it's far from perfect, so I'll give them a 2 out of 3 there. Protection exists only in form of Celtopus and Dryer Drake, which is not that... Okay, Celtopus only protects itself most of the time, and Dryer Drake requires a bit of a convoluted combo in order to take place in order to get that protection effect up and running. So I'll give them a 1 out of 3 there. But in terms of versatility, since their machines were prone to machine dupe targeting and their Link monsters can actually prove to be a nasty threat and are very splashable in various co-link builds or extra link builds. Extra link builds not that much, but you get what I mean. Celtopus is a bit of a more extra link focused card, but yeah, it's not the best, but it's certainly out there. So I'll be generous here and give them a 3 out of 3 in terms of versatility. And that will do it for the Appliancer archetype, and I'm actually quite pleased how they turned out. I was expecting them to be a fun and quirky little deck, just like how Morphtronics were, and I'm actually quite baffled that only one monster did not make it into the actual game, which is the second monster that points directly up, and that is Appliancer Propylion. For some reason, this is the only monster which did not which did not make it into the collection pack 2020, but I guess we'll see him in Archetype rematch if not anything. But if you're wondering what kind of his effects are, it's actually it actually has bouncing effects. So yeah, I could definitely see potential in him, since if Doloran is anything to go by. And that was the better of the 2 archetypes from Collection Pack 2020, because next time we meet, oh boy, it's not going to be pretty. You get ready for an absolute massacre of an archetype analysis, because oh boy, I'm not going to give off anything else here. Just wait for the actual review, which will probably happen tomorrow. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more vids, and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all, and have a good day. Peace.